Wokes on air, Wokes on air, Wokes on air. Welcome to episode 7 of Wokes on air with my wonderful, wonderful co-host Chidubem Okechukwu. Chidubem, how you doing?
I'm good.
I'm Akim-Maria as always, and today we're talking about tribes. I'm excited about this one, people. I have to be honest. I don't know. I've been jumping. I've been excited. I've been buzzing to record this podcast. Wokes and I were just having a conversation leading up to this podcast with discussion of tribes, and I think listeners, you guys are in for a treat. So, Wokes, how you doing now? Give us a little breakdown of your week. What's going on?
I'm fine. First time leaving London in a while today, and made me appreciate my lovely city. Don't want to leave again. Yeah, so that's about it. Happy to be in this particular tribe, should I say?
So let me just do you want to give a breakdown of what you think tribes are or what you found tribes to be, and then I'll give a go and give my spiel as well.
So I think tribes are a manifestation of the specific characteristics that make up a group of people within a defined territory. That's how we define a tribe.
So what you're saying is that tribes are limited by borders, by saying defined territory.
Yeah, so I believe that you first to begin with, there's a country, and then there are regions within the country, or however you call them, and then within those regions, you create sects of people, and the characteristics that bring those people together, the different nuances that they share, are what put them together as tribes. So that's where that distinction comes from. Social division, I think.
So I'm still part of a tribe, even though I leave that territory, as long as I have certain characteristics. Okay, good.
Yeah.
I checked Google. I love that search engine. And tribes was defined on there as a social division. I want to insert unit here because division is too strong a word for me. A social unit in a traditional society consisting of families or communities linked by social, economic, religious, or blood ties with a common culture and dialect, typically having a recognized leader. So that's a lot of information there. I think Google was really close to accurate with this definition. It gave a lot of factors that make up a tribe. It also said traditional society. That's I think also another good point there, and has a recognized leader. You know, didn't define whether the leader was a person or an idea, but it did say it has a recognized leader. And from this, Wonks, I know we talked a little bit about this last week on Power, where we mentioned tribes, and you went into the word tribalism. It would follow that tribalism stems from the fact that tribes exist. And I just wanted to test you on this one because I know I haven't asked you about defining tribalism, but would you be able to define tribalism in your own interpretation of this?
I'll say that tribalism is the favoring of a tribe over another, essentially. Like a feeling of superiority by one tribe over the other. And the general ideas that sum up that feeling of superiority will be called tribalism.
So it's kind of like linked to a definition of racism I've understood. Like in terms of
basically.
Sorry?
I said basically, yeah.
Like in terms of feeling superior, I think that idea of like one tribe being superior to another tribe is kind of like what the general idea or understanding of what tribalism is. However, I checked Google.
I know, and you said something else.
And you checked Google as well?
I did.
And Google said something else, right?
Google gives a neutral definition. I don't think.
Why would you consider that to be a neutral definition? How can you say something is defined if it's like subject to definition change? You know what I mean? A definition is a definition.
I know, but the point is like the definition is neutral in the sense that it is not portrayed as positive or negative. It says that tribalism is the behavior and attitudes that stem from strong loyalty to one's own tribe or social group. So that doesn't really put it in a good or bad light per se.
But you read the derogatory definition. The standard definition is the state
Mm-hmm.
or fact of being organized in a tribe or tribes. So it's even talking about the organization of
Yeah, I mean, I
entities into
saw that
tribes.
as
That's
well, but
tribalism.
I saw that as well, but I wasn't really going to pull on that definition
Mm.
because that definition is not really what I was looking for. Let's put it that
But
way.
why is it what you're looking for and not what it is?
I think it's important because what I'm looking for stems from what I understand and what I'm trying to explain. So
That's interesting.
the first definition for me is a bit simplistic and doesn't really go into depth in terms of the cultural elements you're talking about. Because obviously everybody knows that people have to be recognized and defined, rather organized into tribes. So that's basic, and I wouldn't really say that that's the definition of tribalism that I would give. I think the definition that most people would understand and be expecting is second definition, which I didn't even see the part that it was derogatory. I just thought that's that's Google's own way of putting it. But yeah. Even the sentence given says is society motivated by cultural tribalism.
So
Again,
what you're trying to describe is kind of like a negative effect of tribes.
exactly, yeah.
But
so my own
then
definition of
that's
tribalism is, from my experience, is actually a bad thing in Nigeria. I think tribalism
and
is actually a bad thing.
we're going to get onto that point eventually.
Yeah.
That's why I'm so excited about this interview. Did I say interview? About this podcast, because there is so much like unearthing that I've uncovered from just looking, just like a bit of research on the internet. And let's just work with what the internet is giving us, in the fact, in the idea that it's stating that tribalism is the state of fact of being organized in a tribe or tribes. Okay, so um if you organize yourself into a tribe based on the fact that you're from the same tribe or you're from different tribes, anything that's based on tribe is, i.e., tribalism. This is what I'm understanding from this simple definition that Google has given. And I also, for the sake of this conversation, want to talk about ethnicity, because that's also relevant for people to know when we're talking about tribes in Nigeria. And the definition I got from Google was ethnicity is the fact or state of belonging to a social group that has a common national or cultural tradition. This ties back into the idea of tribes, because this is basically a traditional society that is connected by social, should I say, status, in social groupage. If you're grouped in based on your social background, then that's your ethnicity. It doesn't necessarily state that there's a leader involved, but it does say that one has a, a common cultural tradition and common national tradition. So even Nigeria as a nation, we can even describe ourselves as a tribe, because we have a common national identity. And it's interesting that a lot of Nigerians don't necessarily see it this way. Now on to the next very interesting thing that we found in on Google. How many tribes do we have in Nigerian Nwokes?
Well, I can see 371 listed out officially.
That's a lot of tribes. That's a lot of tribes. And I came across 383. But one thing that we can both agree on, I think, and I haven't shared this with you, is that there are 200 plus tribes in northern Nigeria, in states like Adamawa, Bauchi, Plateau, and Taraba. Over 200 tribes in just that region alone. That's incredible. So this is Nigerian tribes for you people. I hope you listeners are currently enjoying. There's more to come. There's more to come. So, the major tribes, as we know, are Nwokes. Do the honors, please.
We have the major three ethnic groups, I think you mean? Yes.
Major tribes.
Yeah, so the three major ethnic groups in Nigeria are Hausa, Fulani, Igbo, and Yoruba.
Nice.
In no particular order. So yeah.
And in terms of just to kind of take us to a political angle on this for just a minute, we know that these tribes have been in control of Nigerian government for quite a while. And one of the questions I wanted to put down at this point, and nobody has to...
one particular tribe has been... I wouldn't say these tribes.
Well, actually, that's a good point.
Not the Igbos at all.
But we know that it's been circulating between like Hausa, Yoruba, and Igbo, because Olusegun
never circulated between Hausa, Yoruba, and Igbo. It circulated between Hausas.
But
and
Olu's
then maybe one.
general,
Like,
former
who
general,
are the
I think he's still presently general. Olusegun Obasanjo. Is he not Yoruba?
exactly
Mm-hmm.
that's just one Yoruba person out of
And
when
Goodluck
we
Jonathan was
have
from the south as well. Even though he's from Bayelsa, he was considered to
yeah.
be like
So
an
not from
Igbo.
that point, it's not from the ethnic groups, and definitely not. Feel like within the three major ethnic groups, only the
Mm-hmm.
houses that have represented
Yeah,
government
but
for long.
these are the only representations that we've had, and at least we can say Yoruba person has been among them, like in terms of
I mean,
presidential.
I don't think that's what we should be beating ourselves on the chest about, though.
It's not
That one
nobody's
Yoruba
be.
person
It's
after
a
many
fact.
years.
It's basically what I'm saying.
It's a fact, but I'm saying
Mm.
that like it's a fact. That's fine, but I'm saying it's not enough of a fact for you to say that it's been rotating. It's not like that
That's the
consistency. It's been rotating between the three major ethnic groups is wrong. That's what I'm saying. It has
okay.
never rotated between
How
the
would you
ethnic
describe it?
groups.
How would you describe it if not
So I'll say
rotation?
that like the house that have been in government for the longest time still continue to generally dominate government, and then literally for the Igbos we've had Nnamdi Azikiwe, and that's it, and that was many years ago before I was even born.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have Obasanjo that came in, and some other heads of state as well, like
Mm-hmm.
Abiola and the rest. Yeah, but even then I'll still say that more. First of all, mostly Hausas, very evidently and obviously, and then if anything, then Yorubas, but definitely not Igbos. So yeah, so I don't think it's equal representation.
Well, but there have been some names up there in that president, governor general, and head of state. Um, should
Like
I say
who?
capacity? I think Aguri Yonsi was Igbo as well, even though it was like a coup situation. Yeah,
Who
so
else?
there's been representation there. But what I'm saying is, it's not necessarily the number of people, just the fact that these people can actually say that, or these tribes can say that they've had a Yoruba representation, Hausa representation, Igbo representation. It's not about equality. It's just basically what's happened.
Yeah,
But
they've had some.
moving on to that, like, do these tribes maintaining power say something about the structure of the Nigerian society and the Nigerian?
Definitely, of
Yeah,
course, it does.
of course. Please expand on that.
Politics is always like an indication of social structures and philosophies and ideas and groupings. And I think that in Nigeria, the fact that I think in Nigeria a very obvious thing is there's a group of people that hold the power essentially, and I think it's the North. And I think it happened for many reasons. It has been like that in history, which has given it, paved the way for it to continue like that in the present, in the future. Well, hopefully not in the future, but at least in the present. And I think in general, we're not getting enough the power flow, because it's not even meant to be about the three major ethnic groups. When we say three major ethnic groups, we don't really mean the ethnic groups that matter the most in Nigeria, which is something that people tend to. I think people tend to forget that it's just a statement of majority, not actually a statement of most important. Which is somehow what it comes off as when you say the three major ethnic groups. It's not like they are the ones that matter the most in the country. They're just the three major ones, full stop. But we have so many of them, so many ethnic groups, and I feel that so many ethnic groups are not being represented. Not to even mention, some within the actual three major ones. So I think that social division is very evident in like the power structure and like who keeps holding the power in terms of like top positions in government, particularly president. I think that more importantly as well, it also feeds into how we start to think about the country. So we have the North, where you said yourself has more than 200 tribes. It now becomes a situation where people start to define the country by the people that they know, because they're the people that they always see in government. So like a regular person who maybe not has who maybe might not have as much information about Nigeria as a Nigerian might just go on Google and try to guess as much as they can about Nigeria and its current situation, and just see like, oh, okay, we have Buhari here, we have this, we have that, we have that. Seems like if I went for a trip to Nigeria, I would want to stay in the north, or I would want to have northern friends, or like that's kind of how it comes off as like that's where it's at. That's where the big boys are, So yeah.
Understandably. Um, yeah, obviously, when there is a certain level of bias towards one particular version of government, then people's perception tends to kind of shift in that bias direction, if you know what I mean. There's an article I came across online. It's called "Tribalism and Politics in Nigeria" by Walter Schwartz. It was written in 1966, and even far even as far back as 1966, which is not too far away, it says that tribalism and politics are scarcely separable in Nigeria. As in most developing countries, ideological issues in politics tend to take second place. Sharing the cake matters to people. This is what makes tribalism so fierce. And I think he's using tribalism in the way you mean it in
Yeah.
Nigeria, rather than necessarily like how it's it's structured into different um, people from the same region or from with
Mm-hmm.
similar common cultures and traditions. He also goes on to say it is not that different tribes dislike each other. The trouble is they are competing for such scarce commodities, and the tribe which controls the state controls the commodities. I'm paraphrasing
Mm-hmm.
him there. He says tribalism is a pejorative word. Pejorative meaning expressing contempt and disapproval. So that's what you were saying. Tribalism is like understood to be a negative word in Nigeria. However, that representation on Google is much different from our understanding. And I think when we actually understand what it is, that negative idea that is tribalism a bit better, I think we'll be able to solve some of Nigeria problems a bit more accurately with the results that we need. He also says that he wondered whether it is the right word to use, stating that Nigeria, i.e., tribalism, stating that Nigeria has dozens of tribal and linguistic groups, most of them very small. He stated that it's not the small groups that are causing the trouble, but the rivalry of the big three. These groups are important enough in themselves to be called nations. They are not only
Mm-hmm.
nations, but large nations. Now, it's important to know about this going forward with anything regarding Nigeria. Because as you
Mm-hmm.
mentioned, I even off record discussion with how Igbo people have different subgroups within the Igbo nation, to quote Mr. Schwartz, that need to be defined. It's very interesting that a lot of this doesn't come to the front of the conversation. How Igbo is large enough to be a nation, how Yoruba is large enough to be a nation of its own, and how Hausa is large enough to be a nation of its own. We talked about how they spilled over the borders of some of the states, some very large states in Nigeria as well.
Mm-hmm.
And as a result of this, the lack, I personally don't necessarily, I didn't know about all of this in concrete terms until I actually looked at these articles. And what is the chance of an individual in Nigeria having no education being able to argue these points, or even being able to put across that the houses are so large that the minorities don't even get a chance? It's quite
Mm-hmm.
complex, the situation in Nigeria. What do you think, Wolves?
Yeah, I think that I don't know if I would call any of the major ethnic groups nations. To be honest, I don't know. Like, if we go down to what the definition of a nation is, I don't really think that the ethnic groups as united as a nation is needed to be, for many reasons that just exist on their own. But I think more importantly, the fact that somebody sees them as a nation. I'm assuming the person that wrote this has a lot of inclinations with Nigeria and like ties to it emotionally and probably practically so as well.
He wrote
For
for
them
the
to actually,
Observer in 1966, by the way.
sorry,
The British
yeah,
newspaper, or British journal,
nice,
The Observer. Yeah.
yeah. So the fact that someone wrote this 6 years after independence
Hmm.
and 3 years after Nigeria became a federation says a lot about how that's how grandiose he thought the ethnic groups were, that he was able to even make that analogy to being, and I think that's very powerful. It might not necessarily be true, but it says a lot about the image, like the perspective that those ethnic groups put off to people that are observing them, and people that might not necessarily be part of them, how they think about them. And I do actually have scenarios where I've seen people get overwhelmed by just the culture of like coming from one of the major ethnic groups, and how it's vastly in some ways very different from the minorities. I think it says a lot, one way in terms of like how larger than life these ethnic groups can be, these major ethnic groups can be. Then also it says something about how other people see them, and are they seeing them as equally as they should see them? Because within a country, you never really feel that any part of your country is so nation-like that it's overwhelming. Because the whole point of being citizens of the same country is that you should all feel the same. You should all feel as big as you can because you all belong to the same country. There's no difference between one man to the next. So I think that's my own take home from that. That's something that struck me a lot about that article. The fact that that analogy was made, and I really want to understand, what it is that would make a person liking the Igbos to a nation, or the Hausas to a nation, the Yorubas to a nation, and whether or not it's really a good thing, or whether it's drawing us back as a country, or bringing us forward, or making us stay together.
I think
Who knows?
it's the sheer size of the
Mm-hmm.
the tribes, because in the article he mentioned in 1966 there were about 20 plus million Hausa
Mm-hmm.
people. I've just checked on Google and it says there are about 25 million native Hausa speakers and about 50 million second language Hausa speakers in Nigeria. Those are nation sizes. You know what I mean in terms of population. So, uh, if he's looking at it from a population perspective, which I believe he was, I think he's fair enough to say that a tribe consisting of about 20 million people can be considered a nation. So, in that regard, of course, the sheer size of it is stunning. To be fair, that's a tribe. That's like, if we look back to our original definition, something that has a traditional leader, something that shares the same language, same cultural background, customs. It's pretty complex. So within themselves, they have to decide on leading each other, and then to now bring this to the Nigerian environment. I would not be surprised to understand how some of the conflict is even spilling over into Nigeria. If there's internal conflict, it would I can understand how it would spill into the nation's understanding, and then to be very different from a second tribe that's also as close to being as large as they are. I think Yoruba tribe. I haven't checked them recently, but in the man's article, he also said they're about uh close over 10 million Yoruba individuals back in 1966, just in the Western region alone. Not to even talk about worldwide. But imagine those numbers going up against each other. There's going to be pride, there's rivalry. And he said that's what's causing the problem in Nigeria. This is a journalist back in 1960. So it's not even different. It's not that different today to understand how those problems are still perpetuating in the sense that if this rivalry is still going on, large numbers of people fighting for scarce resources and knowing that whoever controls the commodities controls the jobs, controls a large number of government establishments, they're gonna definitely have some serious battles. And those minority tribes that don't even number up to those huge tens of millions of people are gonna feel the fallout of this. I just wanted to also add. I also saw another article from 1975 by a lady called Ramanath Narayanaswamy. Her article is called "The Tribal Imbalance," and in it she says the primacy of tribal politics has to be accepted as an unavoidable fact that continues to dominate the power structure of these countries, namely Nigeria. The North fears the rise of the South, and the South the rise of the North. The problem of state is closely linked to the problem of tribal representation in the country's power structure. As you can see, the North fearing the rise of the South and the South fearing the rise of the North already creates a conflict. The introduction of fear as an ingredient with that large number that we talked about of the North Hausa people, Hausa Fulani, the Igbo people also number in large quantities upwards of 10 million people. Those are going to create some serious conflicts, and that manifested in the Biafra War in 1967, and a lot of other problems in politics. It's not hard to see why this situation in Nigeria is going on when it comes to tribalism or any other situation like that, because so many people are fighting for scarce resources. This journalist Walter Schwartz said it. As long as there's scarce resources, economics knows this. As long as there's scarce resources, they have to be managed. And if there's no proper structure, i.e., if we have three different tribes of people numbering above 10 million people each, then how are you going to organize that? That's the problem Nigeria faces. So I can definitely understand this, and what I just hope is for us to get our organization together and put any of these negative stereotyping or memories, anything just that has damaged each other, or find forgiveness is basically what I'm trying to say here.
Mhm.
In our house, I know it's easier said than done, but wow, having read what these people have said, having seen these numbers, having looked at these figures online, there are a lot of people fighting for scarce resources. That's what the problem is. And that's Nigeria. How are we going to
Mhm.
solve that, Wokes? And Tribes has helped me
Yeah.
see this. I have to be honest. This discussion of Tribes has helped me see this.
Yeah.
Wow. That's my
Yeah.
conclusion, Wokes. So I'm telling you, like, literally, I can understand now. Before I used to just ask myself, like, why is Nigeria so, like, hectic? But
Mhm.
180 million people from
It's a lot.
different tribes, 371 tribes in your find, 383 in my find,
In your find, yeah.
above 180 million people from 370 and above tribes fighting for the same resources in a country that's still developing. Wow.
And it's not even just about fighting for the same resources. They're coming from different backgrounds, different
Mhm.
historical perspectives, different, angers as to how history has taught and treated them.
Yeah.
And for me, it's like putting all the things into perspective. There's so many things that haven't been settled in Nigeria, but we keep moving on from them. I think that's
Mm.
what it is. We keep moving on from our history without ever addressing it. So have so many backlashes really just hanging on, and people just feel different things and they express their anger at different times. And I think that's what it is. We also have a country that is just generally unrested in different ways, and people that are just not satisfied and have been unable to say that they're satisfied for a long time. And I'm trying to say it gradually, but I'm not saying it as much as they would like to say it. I think
Mm.
that's what it is.
The composition is
And I
real.
think
Yeah.
competition is real. And then I would, there's something that sticks out for me as well in my research on tribes is
Mhm.
that, when you look at the ways in which all the ethnic minority states, so to say, have broken down themselves into different tribes, we don't really have that with, the Igbos, for example. And I think particularly the Igbos for me, because I'm Igbo, and I can in many ways understand that because I feel that we are a very divided set of people, and it comes a lot from even the fact that we couldn't even be, we weren't, it wasn't even easy to colonize us, in particular, like our own part of Nigeria, because there wasn't even a structure because we didn't even have like a certified structure of like where leaders stem from and who is leader at this tier, who's at the next tier. We just all wanted to be leaders in our own little communities, and it just didn't create a structure for it to colonize anybody. And I think that feeds into like how divided and scattered the ethnic group itself is, and the fact that that still continues to not be recognized. Like Igbos are not just Igbos. Like they are different, varying degrees in the way the language is spoken, the cultures that they practice, in the way their ideologies on different things, just general things, even like where they originate from, really, because the simple fact is, somebody will come and be like, oh, like, well, Igbos originally originates from Anambra State because of knock art and having the first iron maker and things like that, and like the first person to actually make anything that was steel or bronze, and just different things. And I think it's very important to consider how that division not being expressed can in many ways stall a group from moving forward. Maybe that's why we haven't been in leadership for a long time. Maybe we need to resolve that. Maybe it's a basic problem that we haven't actually stepped up from and we are still stuck there. We just
Hmm.
haven't really defined ourselves as diversely as we should. And deceiving ourselves that we are all the same is probably, and not being able to live with that deceit in general, just was putting us back. So
What do
yeah.
you think about, because you know when a bigger body, this is from my own personal observation, when a bigger body is able to stabilize, it gives an opportunity for the
Mhm.
more individual or the more sub groups of that body to express themselves. So the bigger body is giving them a platform to express themselves. What do you think about tribes coming together to actually create this base where that individuality which you've just described as
Mhm.
people being able to express themselves and smaller groups and smaller section of tribes to express themselves is able to come forward as a result of the bigger base, i.e. the larger tribes finding that stability, each one knowing that when you have that large nation size, that coming together, giving people opportunities, specializing, understanding what it is you want to deliver to the idea of, let's say, Nigeria, um, comes to the front. When you understand what you want to give as a tribe to Nigeria, then
Mhm.
that idea forms the basis of how the individuals can express themselves. Because you just mentioned like the Igbo people being ironsmiths. So
Mhm.
if they are seen as industrialists, and it is agreed that um, everybody should be given the opportunity. Let's give the Igbo people an opportunity to express themselves as ironsmiths because that's what they feel is their history. That's what they feel is their heritage. Then the individual ironsmiths within that will be able to come out. And it's also possible that some Igbo people may not even feel like the ironsmiths. They might even feel they're more creative, like being an artist or being, like, let's say, a painter, even though some people
Yeah,
might
definitely,
classify that.
because people,
But
people,
then
cultures evolve. That's a fact. Yeah.
but then they would have that basis of having um, the Igbo platform or the Igbo people being known as industrial and therefore
Mhm.
go from there. And so too with the Hausas and the people in the north. The people in the north, I would say that they're very war savvy. Maybe some people might be offended with me saying that,
Mhm.
from a different tribe, they may feel that they have a better idea of warfare than the north do. But, we talked about Usman Danfodio and what he was able to achieve.
Mhm.
There's that as well. I personally don't know, like, whether who's better at what in terms of warfare. But warfare I can see has been a macho bravado thing that people want to claim. But I believe
Mhm.
every human has that strategic element to them and is able to achieve a goal or a mission in their own way. I may not necessarily want to brag about it. However, the people that want to brag about it seem like the Northerners to me personally, because they have that proud history with Usman Danfodio, and I can't really argue with that because it's known for me. I know where that stems from, and I have an understanding of what they're trying to achieve. But if that's what they wanted to do, and then I would say the Yoruba, I would associate them very traditional individuals that have respect driven, honorable of the
Definitely
elders.
respect driven.
Yeah,
Yeah,
very
definitely.
very honor driven in a sense, very honor driven. And
Mhm.
if what I know that they have a very communal sense to themselves. Like I don't know a Yoruba person that would ever divide from another Yoruba person. Like honestly speaking, they
Yeah.
they really stick together. And as a result of that, there could be something within that they could derive. I don't necessarily know, but perhaps maybe finance or something along those lines. I don't know. I'm just basically throwing something out there. As Lagos, they have Lagos the Center of Excellence, the commerce side of things, Coco. They have all those, should I say, investment acumen or however it goes. And if the whole of Nigeria just agrees, okay, these guys, let's see what they can do with this that everybody agrees that they should have. And then each tribe can now start saying, okay, this is where I want to go, this is where I want to go, this is where I want to go, this is what I want to do, and then grow from there. Because together is the only way Nigeria is gonna emerge as the giant of Africa. We can't just section ourselves off into one of these groups and just say, okay, this is how we're gonna bring out the giant of Africa. No, the giant of Africa is complete. The giant of Africa
Mm.
is the giant of Africa stands strong. Together we stand, divided we fall.
I mean, we already are classed as the giant of Africa anyway,
Based
but
on
we need to earn
geography
it based on
and
geography.
population size. But the giant
But
of
that's
Africa,
something.
it
Mm.
is. But when you know about the disunity, how can a giant function as a giant if it's not united? If it's not moving
Yeah.
together? If a giant, like, what is a mountain if it's um just something just laying on the ground? It has to be seen in all its splendor. It has to be observed from the right points of view. And if those
Mhm.
factors aren't going in to the output that is the mountain or the giant, then it's just like anything else. It's in disarray. It's like debris, just floating aimlessly. And until then, until that full potential is realized, until we're actually delivering what giants deliver, then we're just um, underachieving. And I'm done seeing this. I'm done seeing it as that. Definitely want to see it.
Yeah, I mean,
I want to see it in its full
yeah.
glory,
We are
contributing to
underachieving,
the
but
global
even
world.
more so, other African countries are really underachieving because I mean, we're still giant Africa. We still have the largest economy, and we need to like. Do you understand? If we've spotted all these issues, but we are still at the forefront of certain things that people will still class as the first go-to things they go to check. So a bigger topic as well. It really is. It's not just like Nigeria underperforming and tribes and all the isms. It's in general like Africa really like where are we headed? Because if we're complaining about Nigeria this much, then what about the African countries that
If we're what, sorry?
behind us? If we're complaining about the issues that we have as a country,
not complaining, no. Looking for solutions.
I mean, yeah, I'm complaining. I'm looking for solutions. But the point is, like, I'm stating the fact that I'm not impressed by these issues. And I think that if I'm not impressed by these issues, and I think that these issues are a couple, and then I see that I wouldn't necessarily say that other African countries are doing better than us, then it kind of worries me. Like, why have I spotted so many problems? And I'm not like at the back. Just as it shows, like if you go down a notch to other places, we even find even more problems. So I think, I think it might have to be a chain effect where we start off and then people follow, or people follow from us, or we start off and like the top resolves the issues at the bottom. If that makes sense. I don't know, but yeah.
I think I've seen some activity on the continent that means that people aren't even waiting for Nigeria to move forward. I mean, what's going on in Kenya? What's going on in Rwanda? All these countries, they're moving forward regardless of whether they're being led or not. They're doing their own thing. They're independent, and I applaud that. The thing is, that's what we're here to solve. Nwokes. You and I, Nwokes on air listeners, everyone around the globe is here to push Nigeria in the right direction. For some reason, we need that support. 180 million plus people.
Definitely, we will get there.
100%. Nwokes on air. Progress is the target. That's it from me, Nwokes. You can go on talking. I think for the sake of our listeners.
That's it for me. I think I've hit all the major.
That's what's up.
I wanted to hit.
Awesome. That's what we want. Ladies and gentlemen, I will place the links of the articles on the tribes of Nigeria in the description section of the video. If you liked it, please click the like button. If you loved it, please subscribe. Click the notification bell, get notifications and updates. This is the 7th Nwokes on Air episode, 12 random subjects of Nigeria. Do we have an idea of what the next subject is?
Yeah, we haven't conclusively decided, have we, actually?
We did say something about Nigerian money, though.
Yeah, we did say that, but do you think Nigerian money fits in as a good, follow-up from this discussion? Or
12 random topics, Nwokes.
I mean, yeah.
Random. It's all good. Nigerian money. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for listening. Have a great week. And stay tuned. Next publication will be out next week.
Yeah.
Take it easy. All the best. Enjoy your week.
Bye.
Out.